Right, it's 3:01. I'll call the Seneca Healthcare District Board of Directors meeting to order. And we have two board members joining virtually via Zoom, Ryan from Mountain View and Rich from San Clemente. Their addresses are on the agendas. And let's do our roll call. So we have Ken here, Sherry's here, I'm here. Rich, are you online?
I am.
And Ryan?
I'm here.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and, are we meeting in closed session today? Yes, we are. We'll meet in closed session. Government Code 54956.9D1. 549, sorry. There's two of those, two different cases. Velez versus SHD, Lobos versus SHD. Health and Safety Code 32106. Government Code 54957.6. And for compliance, quarterly report. Let's go ahead and do our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Right, now we will open up for public comment. Do we have any public comments?
No. Oh.
I do. Please.
My name is Barbara Montandon, and I just have a question. I talked to Chelsea, and she kind of gave me the what's going on with the new system where we all come in and sit in one great big room in here when we just came off COVID and everybody sneezing and coughing in one big room, which anyway, I have talked to several doctors and talked to a lot of the staff. I've talked to tons of the public. And Chelsea said that this new system is not in stone yet. So I'm here to ask on behalf of many people, what was wrong with the old system? Why can't we go back to that? There's many reasons, which I'm sure you've heard them all, why nobody is in favor of sitting in a big common waiting room and then being escorted down to our doctors. Today I was there and then I had to wait for someone to escort me back. There's no big deal. I wasn't in a hurry, but nobody seems to really like this. And she said it's not in stone. So what I'm here is to ask you, what can we do to not set it in stone?
It's in stone.
It is in stone.
Yeah, there's so many things that happen in the backdrop that the public doesn't see. We've
Yeah,
had
that's why I'm here.
many things. So operationally, we were terribly inefficient. I'll give you examples. Every individual department, individual office was doing referrals and pre-authorizations their own way. So we had multitudes of people getting dropped out where they didn't get their referrals on time. It just got forgotten. So, and then there's scheduling wasn't being done appropriately. Registration was a big one. We were missing parts of registration. So in order to streamline the patient experience, we have standardized all processes. So we do it one way, only one way. The only way to do that really with any kind of compliance was to create a centralized location. Okay, it is a little bit of a change. Okay, I think we're very conscientious, believe us in healthcare, we're very conscientious about all germs, all communicable diseases, especially coming off of 3 years from COVID. If anybody's lived it, we've lived it, we understand. We try to accommodate by getting you out of the main area as soon as possible and taking you back to the other area. But we are going to stay with this. It's showing already to be operationally efficient. For instance, I'll give you an example. We have centralized all pre-authorizations and referrals for specialty care. And where we used to have a backlog of 20 days where things weren't getting done, now they're not even behind a day. So patients are now getting scheduled into specialty care much quicker. It's a more efficient way of doing things. It has nothing to do with saving money. We're not losing any staff. We're just reallocating for the new workflow. I understand it's a change. I too have received a lot of feedback. Okay. So it's the right thing to do for the organization. It's also best practice, which, we rely on best practice in healthcare. Best practice is something that's been proven to work over and over again, not just with us, but places like Stanford and wherever. So we've adopted best practice. We didn't do it. I didn't twist my mustache one day and say, this is perfect. We're going to just do this to mess everybody up. This actually comes from best practice that's out in the community.
Are you going
Healthcare.
to give so far just the ladies in the central area here more help? Because I've called, left a message, didn't get a call back, and I'm not putting the blame on them because they're doing 10
Yes.
jobs at once.
You betcha.
And then I have to call back at the end of the day,
Yes.
and I apologize to them because I know they're running patients, they're checking people in, they're checking people out, they're running cars, they're doing everything. Are you going to streamline that?
So we're very much watching the front for efficiencies when they get behind. So we have the ability to put a third party there. And we've already got plans to do that
Oh, good.
by taking a look at things. The other thing that we're taking off their plate as of April 24th is scheduling. So they won't be answering scheduling calls. It'll go to a centralized scheduler that can see every single doctor's book. So that you can have one person that's dealing with your scheduling, and they will be doing check-in, registration, and that. So we are taking pieces away as we centralize, but we're also watching their workflow. If they get busy, then we are going to adapt to it very much so. So we're paying attention.
So I think about Chelsea's comment about it not being set in stone, it's just the back processes that you don't see are the parts that we're still working out the keys of. So
Those would-
please bear with us for
Yeah.
another month, and hopefully next month you'll come back and say. it's-
Yeah. And Barbara, actually, those were the things that were falling apart. So the things that the public doesn't see were the things that were affecting our ability to prepare, delays, things that weren't getting done. And those are the things that we're most conscientious about, is making sure that your experience as it relates to not so much coming in and walking, but your experience as it relates to getting scheduled on time, getting a referral on time, like a very quick referral with pre-authorization with your insurance so that you're not responsible. Those were the things that were getting dropped in the background that we really have addressed.
Help in the actual doctor's office with, like, the nurse not having to walk you clear out, and come back, and they're running back and forth and.
Yeah, we're still looking at the flow, it's interesting. This entire clinic was built originally with the concept of each doctor has their own office. And it wasn't built specifically for the flow that we're putting forth. We're doing our best, so we have to take a look at how the flow is in and out. We've talked about dedicated escorts. So rather than the girls having to get up, we're talking about dedicated escorts. So as soon as you're registered, off you go. So you're not sitting in there for very long. And then on the way back as well. So that piece, the workflow piece, is the piece that we're really trying to work through. We understand that it is change, and it does affect what we've been doing for 1,000,000 years, right? But we are trying to make it the best experience possible.
They tried this many years ago.
Did they?
If I remember right, many years ago, they tried this.
It failed. Huh?
Yeah, it obviously failed, yes. Yeah. Thank you.
That's one more thing I want to just add. So we did pilot this, not with Dr. Ware, not with Dr. Walls. We piloted it with one of our local doctors, Dr. Iris Backham, when she came in. And we found that the efficiencies ultimately were much better. The accuracies were better. So the things that were happening in the back end that really do affect patient care were much, much better. So we're gonna stay with it. We're gonna still work through it. It's iterative.
And then the staff, though, they're still not happy with this.
I'm sorry.
Working with the staff to, obviously, it sounds like you
Are
are,
they not happy with the change?
the system of it.
The change?
Well, of course, yes.
Okay. And which office is that? Don't say staff. And you don't have to. I can probably tell you who it is. So it's okay.
Well, and
It's
this question came from your central, I've talked to many of them, including doctors. Talked to doctors, I've talked to staff, I've talked to the front reception, and patient, I've talked to, and I haven't found one positive remark from anybody under this roof.
Well, my door's wide open. Then come talk to me anytime they want. If they, the thing is, once again, if they've got a great suggestion, I am very open to listen. I am not this person that's got to bulldog their way through this thing. If they say, hey, this isn't working, or I have a suggestion, and this is something that we try to impart as a cultural shift here, is if there's a problem, don't just come and complain, come and talk to me and have a solution.
Well, that's why
have an
I'm
answer.
here.
Yeah.
And then all people says, well, we're gonna start a petition, we're gonna go on blast on social media.
Okay, knock
No,
yourself
no,
out.
don't do that. Do the meeting and ask. the
Talk to me.
question.
Yeah.
Don't be doing
That
that.
includes staff. Staff have, my door is wide open, ask anyone. If they've got a suggestion and they've got a better way of doing it, I'm wide open.
Let's go back to the old way.
Yeah,
That's what
no.
they think is the better way.
It's the comfortable. building. And I'll show the data. I'll show the data that's not the better way.
Yeah, 'cause it's always better for the patient, so it's just gonna be a matter of our staff getting used to, and coming up with suggestions on how to do it.
Well, you know,
And let's make change for change's sake.
just going to our doctor's office. You know, I'm sitting there today and I'm thinking, I'm waiting for someone to get me to take me out. There's my truck. There's the door out and I can't go up there. I have to walk
Well,
all the
maybe
way around.
maybe exit's fine if you don't have to do a follow-up schedule. I have a problem, it's not an exit issue for me, so we can definitely fix that. And if you want to park there, it's an exit, you want to go right out, that's fine with me. It's coming in and getting everything processed properly every single time. That is the most important. That's why we made the change. Heck, we can open that up right now. If you want to exit that way,
I mean,
absolutely.
I don't mind waiting and walking around and stuff, but I know they're not.
It can be tough for some folks, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
That's a great suggestion, Barbara. I think that the exit, I have no problem with that.
Oh, good.
But yeah, let me noodle on that. That's a good idea. I have no problem with that. If you don't have to come back
Mhm.
for any reason to reschedule an appointment, heck, if you want to leave and reschedule it on the phone, that's the other thing we're doing is centralized scheduling. So you can even do that. So that's a great suggestion.
Well, thank you.
Wide open to it.
I just kind of wanted to get more of the
Yeah,
whole flow of it.
thank you. Thank you for coming for sure. All right.
It's like it's a work in progress.
Sorry.
With the new phone system, help with the laptop, because I had that here, and it wasn't forwarded to my doctor. I came here, got a copy of it and sent it to him, which is not the same as them having it and going over it.
So I can tell you that our phone system is now state of the art. And I know that when we send faxes out to physicians, like the results and stuff like that, we make sure that it has left our building, that it was successful in leaving our building. I cannot guarantee what's on the other side. So whether they put paper in it or I cannot guarantee that it gets delivered. Our system will say, received, delivered. But if they didn't pick it up and put it in the right spot, I can't control their processes.
I never had any problems when I found a banner and had blood work and had to send to my doctor in all these years.
Is your doctor, where's your doctor?
Hmm?
Where's your doctor located, may I ask?
Oh, the doctor's let me, my cardiologist.
In Chico, in Love?
No, he's in Reading, but he goes to Susanville.
Okay.
twice a week.
So this is something that I want to share with the public, our new electronic health record, which comes in April 24th. It's a new electronic health record, actually forwards your information, your lab work and things into a place called the Sac Valley MedShare. It's a health information exchange that is secured, okay? And all hospitals in Northern California have access to it. So they can actually go in and look at it. And they have access, it's controlled access, and they can actually see your lab results because they'll be resulted into that device. So, and we didn't have that before. We had to manually push everything.
Okay, and I don't have a phone number for the hospitals.
800-227-3743.
You're going too fast. Slow.
833
8, 3, 3,
227
2, 2, 7,
3743.
3, 7, 4. And I never got anything in the mail about it being changed.
Oh boy, we put it out everywhere.
I don't have a computer, I don't
Okay,
have a smartphone.
smart. I mean, good for you. It was put actually in the Plymouth News, which isn't a paper anymore.
No.
It was actually posted in the post office and stuff, but it got torn down. We did everything we could to try to get it out. We did not mail. Not mail.
It doesn't roll over, so if you call it.
Yeah, so we actually have a switchboard operator that's on during the day. So when you come in, you're gonna get a live voice and they're gonna put you where you wanna go. They're gonna immediately transfer you. After hours, it's a phone tree. So if you need to get a hold of ER or HIM or acute floor, it'll just be press this, press 4, press 3, press 2. That's after hours and on weekends. But otherwise during the day, you will get a live body. And that was really important for us because wayfinding on the phone around here is very difficult. So they get you where you want to go.
I think the question might have been around the old phone number, is that right? What happens if you call the old phone number?
Yeah, it
You
doesn't,
can still do that.
but she said they tried to call and it wouldn't tell.
Although my daughter got a missed call from Seneca and she tried to call the hospital
How long ago was that? Because there was.
yesterday,
Oh, I better look at that now.
and she couldn't get a number.
And it, so
And
she,
so she wrote to a letter Friday and she hadn't heard back.
It's on my desk. It's being investigated.
Okay.
Yeah, so. Call the old number, so the old number is forwarded, it's not dead, it's just forwarded, you wanna try it? Why don't you just get back to us so we can, okay? We'll work on that, it should work, because we did have a problem and it did, we should know.
What if you do the top, right, so they're not changing, they're not in the top. No. And you say, well, I had a missed call from the Senate.
Okay, so you dialed the old number and it ran right through. I don't know specifically, but yeah, we did have when we first looked at the new system. Keep in mind that the old system was from the 70s and we couldn't do a lot of things with it. When we went to the new system, we had some trouble, not with the phone system, we had trouble with the carrier Frontier. And we worked through that with them, so.
Thank you for.
Thank you all. We are here for you and believe me, I don't change things for change's sake. There's always a reason.
Give us a little more time, and come back and. What you're hearing next.
Sure, okay. Well, I just don't want to blast it around, and I don't think you do either, all over social media and do letters, petitions and all that. I need to come and find out. It solves nothing.
Thank you for being their spokesperson.
Yeah.
For coming here. Great.
Well, I hope, like I say, this is kind of the state of the art. We're old people and we're not state of the art. You're old and I'm-
Joining the ranks. Very good.
Because we have been spoiled with our doctors here, we could pop in and say, hey, we need our blood pressure, we need this, or we need that, and hey, is so-and-so, and you talk to the receptionist, and we're spoiled that way, and that's the way we like it. We like being spoiled.
I do too.
Yeah.
I get it. Okay, thank you.
Is there any public comment online, TK?
I have none online.
Thank you, and will we have comments submitted?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving along, we have our approval of our board meeting minutes. The board have a chance to review these, and are there any questions or comments on them? Let's see. Yeah, accept a motion to approve our minutes from February 23rd.
I make that motion.
Thank you, Sherry. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ken. All in favor, Ken,
Aye.
Sherry,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
I'll vote aye. All right, medical staff report. We have initial appointments for 3 providers, reappointments for 5 providers. Do I have any questions or comments? And if not, I will accept a motion to approve the appointments of medical staff.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thanks, Ken. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sherry. All in favor, Rich?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. Thank you. Okay, policies and procedures. We have a full item number of these. Does any of the board have any questions or comment on any of these procedures?
I do not.
I had a couple of just minor edits that I sent over to Judy. They were very minor. So I would accept a motion to approve these with those minor changes.
I move approval.
Thank you, Sherry. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Ken. All in favor, Sherry,
Aye.
Ken,
Aye.
Rich,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
I vote aye. Thank you.
And just a quick question as a new board member.
Yes.
Over the few years that I've been attending meetings, I've noticed that we've been working through quite a lengthy list of policies and procedures. And I assume this must be some kind of an ongoing process that is just continually being.
It's hard to be yearly, and they haven't been done in quite a while. So there's a major catch up happening with policy and procedures for people where each department has a month and they go through all the policies and procedures and have to update them. So this will be a common thing. So it does happen throughout the year. You'll see certain departments will be represented in the board meeting.
once
So I'm
we
thinking
get to,
the
my
whole
own
book
house
must be
next.
this thick.
Well, except for I think they're separated by department, aren't they?
They are.
Yeah.
You will actually see fewer and fewer, because this is really doing catch up. So I think as you get more involved, as we get these caught up, you'll see one or two, or maybe a change or a rescind.
Yeah.
Rather than a whole plethora of.
Because it's still review them annually, but they may not need to make any changes.
Yeah, many of them hadn't been reviewed.
If you took all the county
5 to
policies,
7
Yeah.
years.
one book for all the
Some of them
departments.
hadn't been reviewed in 7 years, so these are catching up. So you'll see a lot fewer of them going forward.
I think it's really a good thing. I just, was seeing enough volume that I'm thinking, oh my lord, have mercy.
It won't
There's too
Some
much
months
for
like
next
this.
time too.
It won't look like this every single day.
Okay, let's see. Did we make a motion to approve
Yes.
policies? Okay, thank you. All right, so next up, special board meeting request. Donna, are you on?
I am.
Go ahead, Donna.
So we are anticipating getting our the closing of our public comment on the initial study mitigated negative declaration on April 6th. And then needing the preparation, any time to pick up the comments and getting the document finalized, we are asking to have an additional board meeting May 4th in order to get the Seneca board's review of the final ISMND for approval. For request for approval.
And we would expect that to be the only item on our agenda for this meeting. Okay.
Some other items.
Any board members have an issue with that day?
Nope.
It works for me.
Rich,
Okay for me.
hey, Ryan,
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes.
okay. Do you want to keep it at the 3 o'clock time slot, or would you prefer a different time, any board members?
I don't know that I have a preference, so there might be nice to get it out of the way for the day.
To do it earlier in the day,
Yeah.
so in the morning?
I think that'd be my preference.
Yeah.
Rich or Ryan, do you guys have any
No preference.
preference?
Let me check my calendar real quick.
And Donna, how's your schedule look that day?
I'll make myself available.
So.
No problem on my end, whenever time is suitable for everyone else.
Want to do 10 o'clock, or is that,
10 o'clock's the one time
so what time you can?
I mean, I can move this to my executive meeting, but I can do that. If
Or
that's,
we could meet earlier or later.
How long does your meeting usually take?
it's an hour. I have executive every.
You want to set it for 11?
Will 11 work?
Like, yeah.
All right, let's say 11 o'clock then.
Walk on the floor.
Putting it on there right now. Okay. Perfect. So I don't think we need to vote on that. We just agreed to May 4th at 11 o'clock, Donna.
Great, thank you so much.
All right, next up, Sequoia add-on service or add-on, ad service for Seco Consultant. I think that's still you, Donna.
Yes, so we have an ad of 31,000 and change to the as requested for the Seneca contract. I'm sorry, not the Seneca contract, the Sequoia contract. And having reviewed all the time that they have spent in responding to county comments prior to issuing the CEQA document for public comment. It is understood that they have the need for this ad service. So I'm asking that the board approve this to be supplemented into their contract.
Sherry, I suppose there's only way we can get the county to pay for this. Because it would be-
Well, there was a time I would have said absolutely not, but now I'd say it doesn't hurt to ask. But
Even though it was because.
I don't think they ever have, and we've had projects over the years that have had
Same.
huge delays as a result of additional meetings and information and
Okay,
background that county requested.
I figured you have the background.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It didn't do them any good to ask.
Good try then.
Well,
It doesn't cost anything to try.
it has to be reimbursed.
Sorry,
Should we ask the county to be reimbursed? No. Okay,
let's move on.
all right. Then I will accept a motion to approve the Sequoia. What do we call it? Ad service.
Yes.
It's not done though, right?
It's in public comment, so it's, I mean, the county, correct me if I'm wrong, the county still has the ability during the public comment time to ask additional questions. That was part of it. They wanted a secondary review, but the secondary review is going along the review period. So they still have the ability to make changes.
Especially if something major was pointed out during public comment.
Right,
Now that could,
right. But so far it's been good. We went, the review was comprehensive. We made so many changes to it per the request of the county. So I think we're in pretty good shape. But it took a long time.
Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
second,
Sherry, all in favor, Rich,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
Harry,
I,
Ken,
Right.
and I'll vote aye. All right, moving right along now, building RX.
So this will be mine. Our original contract with Building RX, it says Donna, but I'm gonna go ahead and do it. Was through the construction period of 9/24/2025. That was our original contract with Donna. As our program manager, I would like to extend it. This is the ad to extend it. It's $107,000 through what we consider to be first patient, which is expected to be 1/20/26. So this is a couple months ad. I'll raise it up, but I think that Donna has been invaluable in this process. It relates to keeping us on track, keeping us out of trouble and moving these things along, things that a lot of us just have no idea are buried beneath the surface. So I would ask the board to consider this add of $107,545 to her contract for the additional time through first patient.
And I want to reiterate what you said too. Donna has been absolutely invaluable to us, and I think it's important to keep her on through the rest of the project for sure. Do I have any questions, comments from the board members?
just that as we're going forward, this may not be the last ad we see.
Yeah.
That we do have adequate funds sort of in a contingency for these types of additional.
They're part of the overall project budget, so there are contingencies in there, and we do have the ability to borrow back from the GO. So to make us whole.
All right, any other questions, comments? With that, I have a motion to approve.
Move approval.
Thank you, Sherry. You have a second?
No, second.
Thanks, Ken. All in favor, Sherry,
I,
Ken,
Right.
Rich,
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
I'll vote aye. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you so much.
For outlining that so well. All right, next up, we have our financial report. Do we have Steve with us?
She is on vacation. I'm not sure.
Yep, I'm here.
Thanks for joining us on your vacation.
Oh, it's over. It's over. So, no problem though, of course. So, the first thing that I wanted to do before I started the presentation is to talk about the presentation of the financial statements. And again, for the month of January, as we did in December, they are being presented in draft form. As Kristen Courtright and I were pulling together the financial statements for January, we had hoped that some of our timing issues with the recordation of expenses that I had discussed with you all when I presented December's financials would have solved themselves. We thought that it was just the crunch of that first month. But as we got into January and started looking at it, we ran into some of the same things. We did a deeper look at the transactions themselves and found that when we set up the accounting system, the multi-view implementation staff directed us to use a particular date to map the expenses to a particular counting period. And in turn, what it worked out is that they were having us put in the due date as opposed to the invoice date. And so there was that mismatch. So with January, what we had to do is the same thing we did in December, is I had to go through individual accounts and do some kind of high level reconciliation of it and record manual accruals to get the expenses to where they should be based upon the invoices we looked at. This is carried over into February of 2023. So I'll be doing the same thing. We'll be doing the same thing for February. But Kristen has gone back in and looked at all the payment transactions we processed in the month of December, and she was able to go back and change the dates on that. So we think that when we present March to you all, that we'll be on track, and we'll be on track to start having our regular process, month-end process, when we go live on Cerner in the month of May. And then this will also allow us to have our accounts reconciled and analyzed prior to the end of the fiscal year, and in turn before we begin our external financial audit. So are there any questions or concerns or comments about what I've shared with you there?
I think that makes sense, Steve.
Yeah.
Definitely you guys went through a lot of trouble to try and figure out the root cause, though.
Yeah, that was something. And, it's funny because Multiview is what was provided to us as a financial accounting module for Cerner, since Cerner itself does not have a financial accounting module. And we believe that a lot of Multiview's clients operate on a cash basis of accounting, whereas we operate on a full accrual basis, whereas we record revenue in the month that it was earned or driven, and then we record our expenses in the month that they were incurred, regardless of both in revenue and expense when we collect the money or pay the bills. So that was something that was interesting to see, but we feel we're going on. The good news is that this would have been a really horrendous project if we would have tried to do something like this in Evident. The main reason being is that Multiview, we can download all the data from the system, and it exports into an Excel type format. And so we're able to work with the data, whereas everything that we get out, that generally speaking, that we would get out of Evident CPSI would be in a static PDF format. And so, good news, bad news. But going forward, that's going to make analytics and things like that much easier for us. Just happened that it made a very large reconciliation and analytic project infinitely more easier than would have been if we would have had to just print out reports and do separate analysis. So I guess that was one. Plus I learned a lot about the system while I was doing it. So there you go, the silver lining. So for the month of January of 2023, we did report a net loss of just over $391,000 versus a budgeted loss of $374,551 for a negative variance of just under $17,000. There were a couple things that contributed here. We had a negative variance in gross patient revenue, and that was mainly from the outpatient side. There were some pluses and minuses within the inpatient side. Our actual med-surg acute was above budget, but we had no swing bed days, so that brought it down, and the swing bed census is still slightly below our target. Full House. And we've put a little more reserve on our outstanding AR. Our outstanding AR has continued to grow. We'll talk about that a little bit more under the HRG report. So we put a little bit of a more reserve there, allowed that to happen. And it's led to a larger contractual adjustment and in turn a lower net revenue percentage. This negative variance on the patient revenue side was offset by a positive variance in total operating expenses and then also non-operating revenue. Again, interest income. We did not anticipate when we were doing the budget the rapid rise in interest rates, and so we budgeted for a much lower amount. We're now earning about 2.8% interest overall through our investments in the LAIF account. So that's good. Again, it's not necessarily what we could get out there in the open market through treasuries, investing directly in treasuries. We still haven't come up with a mechanism for that yet. We're working on that, see what we can do. But 2.8 is a very good amount. It did push that positive budget variance. I don't know if anyone wants to talk about the Silicon Valley Bank and how that affects us, which it doesn't, but I don't know if there's any concerns among the board about that.
I was hoping it wouldn't, but I'm glad you confirmed it.
No, we did receive correspondence from LAIF. The LAIF has a very conservative investment policy, similar to us. And they said they have absolutely no exposure to Silicon Valley or the other two banks that have collapsed recently. They said they've been able to meet all of LAIF has been able to meet all of their liquidity needs without having to liquidate investments at a loss, which is what took Silicon Valley Bank under when they had to sell. They went long on some investments, longer duration, and those investments had had a lower market value, and when they sold those, they sold them at huge losses. Whereas LAIF, the overall LAIF portfolio has an average investment duration of less than 1 year. So we agree with them. We have no reason to believe that our funds are at risk or that they're not able to meet our and the other contributors and members' liquidity needs. So
what are they paying now?
say that again.
What interest are they paying?
Right now, our overall return is 2.8%.
Okay. See, I got a email from US Bank yesterday saying they pay 3.5 in a money market account.
I'm going to have to look into that for myself. So I have not seen that rich in a money market. I've seen CDs, but wow.
Well, I just got it yesterday from them. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Because we do bank with US Bank, so okay. Any further questions or comments, concerns?
I want to point out something that we've been saying for a while. You know, our expenses are being held in line. This is a matter of growth. This is a matter of outpatient and the ability to absorb a lot more volume in our clinic. So this is just the focal point. My focal point, obviously, is to expand our ability to absorb additional volume in the Patriot business, and that requires providers that have an open practice. So I just want to point that out, that holding expenses, it's all about volume. It's all about clinic, most of the clinic outpatient volume. We don't control acute or ER. And then the peripherals that go along with that, which are the diagnostic studies that come out of funding. So that's just a primary focus. Always is.
Steve, have we heard anything more on IGT recently?
Yeah, so IGT, the Intergovernmental Transfer Program. So we made 2 intergovernmental transfers in the month of February. we made a little over a $1 million transfer under the rate range program, which is a Medi-Cal and supplemental payment program. And then we also made an intergovernmental transfer on our the QIP program, a little over $300,000. We actually received one of the rate range payments this week. So we anticipate that we'll have all of our supplemental payments under those two programs probably within the next month, and certainly before the end of the fiscal year. And so that'll bring us essentially whole. We anticipate our total amount that we'll receive under those programs, something around $3 million. And that'll cover our loss for the year and replenish the cash that we've lost related through operations. So that was good news, I guess.
Thank you, Steve. That's what I was hoping to hear.
Yeah, so they were on it, and I guess that's all to say there. So I just wanted to hit a couple things. Sean brought up expenses. Under expenses, salary and wages, they were over budget. We've seen the shift as it is right now, at least in January, or as it was, that we experienced a shift from employed staff versus contract labor, whereas we had 102.39 FTEs of employed staff versus a budget of 100.75, and then the contract labor was 6.16 versus a budget of 9.5. Main area where this was we saw the decrease in the long-term care, but that turns regularly, that our demands for contract labor will change. It's almost a consistent thing that we'll have that change. It's very, very hard to get labor and get it to be consistently there over a longer period of time. When we do lose staff, there's a recruitment process that takes time as well. So I guess it's kind of an enjoy it while we can kind of thing. However, we did get the CNAs through the program that we recently did. And that was a big plus, and those folks have stuck with us. And that's been a big part of this shift from contract to employed staff. However, as we go into this month, the month of April, as we start doing our training for Cerner, we're going to see that we're going to have, whether it's employees take on additional time, which that's hard to say, but we are making a commitment to add additional contract labor to cover our employed staff while they're doing the Cerner training. And this will be within the month of April. We'll see those numbers. Within the expenses, there's a couple things I didn't talk about in the narrative. Supplies have been consistently under budget, and I think it's clear that when we budgeted for this fiscal year, we didn't have a great sense of what the continued impact of COVID would be. And so I think we've over budgeted a little bit there. And so I think we're just going to continue to see the supplies staying under budget for the foreseeable future, knock on wood kind of thing, that there's not a demand that's created. That we had under utilities, we received our climate, whatever it's called, the climate credit from PG&E, which we all did on our own bills. And that was a pretty big credit for us. And then under other expenses, we have been using locums both in the emergency department and in the Lake Almanor Clinic. And we, as part of our contract with them, we pay for their travel and subsist as far as lodging, not food or anything, but we pay for their travel and lodging while they're here with us. talked about cash. The cash has decreased, it decreased from 219, there's 218.9 days to 207 days. It was due to the loss in January, plus we brought our payables down in the month of January. And at the very bottom, it talks about the AR. The AR went up a little bit and the days went up, and we'll talk about that more under the HRG report. So any questions or comments or concerns about financials?
Steve, can you remind me what, in the professional fees, medical fees, what the other pro fees medical line is for?
Yeah, it's mainly the physical therapy contract with Almanor Physical Therapy is the
I think I asked you that like every other month.
biggest chunk of that. There's a small thing there for our lab. Dr. Mindy Cooper is the lab medical director. And then if we have EKG reading fees, but those are small compared to physical therapy, and physical therapy was both the revenue expense was down for the month of January.
Thank you. Any other questions from board members? No. Thank you then. Since this is a draft, do you want us to vote to accept it still, Steve? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I accept it in its draft form, and like I said, that what we'll do is we will bring back financials to you guys. If we do in turn make any changes, we'll bring revised financials to you. Otherwise, we'll just note for the minutes that the previously presented draft financials were not changed and you guys accepted or whatever it is. But yes, I'd like to at least acknowledge that they were presented and they were at least accepted in draft form without questions or follow-up items or whatever.
Does that sound okay?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to accept the financial report as stated in draft form.
Thank you, Ken. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sherry. All in favor, Rich?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Sherry?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. Thank you, Steve.
Okey-doke.
And moving on, I guess now to our HRG report.
Okay, so I would like to make a quick comment about the public comment as far as it relates to revenue cycle and HRG and that thing. That one of the additional things that consolidating, as Sean made a real good point about, is that the consistency of process at the front end, at the patient access point, that's really a critical thing, so that the insurance information is being verified, and it's that we have it correct, so that when the bill goes out, the claim is processed appropriately, and then a patient balance is determined, or there's no patient balance, whatever it is, and that we don't have issues with denials. And this is a big part. It may not seem as important as your medical care, of course, but the experience that the patient has related to their financial piece of their encounter with Seneca can be very frustrating and lead to a very negative experience. And so I think that this approach really focuses on that, and we're hoping that we get a big return on that there's a greater satisfaction with the patient as far as how we process their claims and their bills, and that makes them feel better about coming to Seneca, that they say, hey, I know Seneca is going to handle my claim and my bill right, and I'm not going to have worries that I shouldn't have. So I hope that's an outcome we see from that. So yeah, with that said, there's just been a creep of the AR, and it's very interesting because I was speaking to a colleague or another CFO in our area, And they said that they have been fighting a third-party payer, not a Medi-Cal or a Medicare payer, but a non-governmental payer. And they've been fighting them for almost a year now on claims. And I don't know, it just seems like it's really getting more and more difficult to get a claim settled. I know we have contracts and we have contracts with insurance companies and the managed care entities for Medi-Cal have contracts with the state of California, DHCS and all that. But it's a real fight to prove to them that they're not in compliance with their contract. And so I guess there's just kind of a symptomatic thing that's happening here where third-party payers are really pushing back on processing claims as they should. And I've seen this before in other areas where we as an industry took it to an insurance commissioner and to the state, and the amount of time you expend on it is it wears on you and also takes you away from other things. So I guess it's just a long-winded way of saying is that the payers are being really kind of difficult with us, and it's just, as always, incumbent upon us to stay on top of them. So
yeah, Stephen, I want to add there, that's another reason why the information captured at the front has got to be so accurate. They're looking for any reason to deny claims. So the more pure the information coming to them with the appropriate information, the appropriate clinical indicators coming from the physicians and things like that effect, it takes away the excuses that they're going to use to not pay us on time. So it's what we do up front really does affect how they deliver it back. So
Do we have any points of comparison to other districts with their?
well, I think Steve's constituents and his colleagues. I think it's everywhere. Everybody's fighting insurance. Steve, is that a fair statement? That it's pretty much across the board.
Yeah, I haven't heard like a broad-based, that it's gotten so bad that my peer group has brought this up as a thing that we need to focus on as a thing. It's just that as I talk to a CFO here or CFO there, that they're having the same challenges. One other piece too is that when we go to Cerner, all of our claims, except for the real, outlier payers that don't represent a great deal of our business, will be sent electronically. Right now, we still have to send paper claims to some payers, specifically Partnership Health Plan for long-term care, and we'll call in, or the HRG will call in, or we'll look at the notes, and they call it in, they say claim pending, claim pending. Then they finally say, well, we don't have that claim. And then they say, oh, we received it. We got 30 to 45 days to handle it. They get a longer time to handle a paper claim. I mean, it's just silly. The other thing that we're going to be dealing with a little bit here over the next few months is that state of California, Medi-Cal moved all long-term care beneficiaries into a managed care plan. Previously, the majority of long-term care beneficiaries, including our residents at Seneca, were what we call straight Medi-Cal, and paid by the state. And there was Partnership Health Plan was one of the few managed care plans that accepted long-term care beneficiaries and processed claims. And previously, our two managed care programs in the county, California Health and Wellness and Anthem, did not. Well, when Medi-Cal, when the state moved the beneficiaries to managed care, those folks that are in our county, basically the people that were in our nursing home that were not from an outside county, were moved to California Health and Wellness. And now long-term care is a new business for them. And so I've seen some claims come in where they're denying for diagnosis codes or things like this. And so there's going to be a back and forth on that one to get that one paid. But once we get that straightened out, we'll get into a rhythm on that one. So, so it's just, as I always say, it's a never ending challenge.
So Steve, I'm assuming that we have our own individual contracts with these different payers. Would there be any value into talking with some of the other CFOs in our area to maybe have a little bit more bargaining power if we were to have a contract amongst more than one entity? You don't have to answer it now. I just have a question. Something legal?
I don't know. I think that if we don't have, so there has to be, to bargain like that, there has to be some sort of affiliation. And I kind of look into the legal challenges to this, but you know, we had some sort of, we're individual districts. So we contract individually, and we were to collaborate through joint powers authority or something like that, maybe.
That's
But
what I'm wondering, because
but-
how can we possibly compete with the larger?
yeah,
healthcare
well, we don't.
organizations?
That's the thing. That's why, you know, the Sutter of the world, and that's why they can negotiate such great rates, because they negotiate as a whole,
Right.
right?
Just
I don't think so, Steve. There's something that holds us back from conjoining, right, to negotiate from a better position.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure on that one, but you know, the interesting thing is that our rates that we have with the commercial carriers are actually quite good.
Yeah, I'm not arguing in
it's-
favor of that for-
It's just that they really run us around in circles sometimes. But the rates are good, and like we always say, we're really hesitant to open up any of our contracts because the rates are really good. We all do use many of the district hospitals and smaller hospitals use a common contracting guy for managed care contracting. And so he kind of negotiates the same rates, and he gets similar rates. So rates are good. Payment timing is less good.
And it's just finding, it's really finding that sweet spot on how they want claims to look, how we want submitted. And that's what we're constantly doing. And then we'll get it all kind of balanced out, rolling, and something else will change. So we're kind of, he's constantly chasing the dog, chasing that constantly. His team is constantly chasing it.
I would imagine something similar to that California Health and Wellness change
Yep.
would screw everything up.
Well,
again.
then we're going to be in partnership world in 2024, which is going to, they have very specific requirements for submission. And we've got to make sure that we understand them, and that we have our processes in place by which they want to have those submitted, so that we don't have these delay in AR and these kickbacks and these delays, if you will, of payment. We really have to massage that.
So when they deny a claim and kick it back, and then we try to resolve whatever the problem is and resubmit, how much time do we lose? Do they get on it right away, or does it go to the bottom? I'm assuming it goes to the bottom of their pile.
Hey, Steve, don't they reset the clock every time there's a resubmission? So we submit, they deny, we mitigate that denial, and then I believe the clock is reset. They've got 30 days.
That's kind of what I was. afraid
Yeah,
of.
it can be a long game with them, you know, so they can just reset the clock.
And then,
So our payment is
Something else.
pushed further and further and further. So the more diligence that we do to keep the claim clean, like they want to see it, then the better off we are. And once again, it's constantly changing. So, you know, it's a lot of work for the team to figure out how they want it.
So how does that work with Cerner if we have to change what we're submitting to different places in a different way. I mean, how is that?
It has all the appropriate information. In fact, I think that you're gonna find that in this is actually one of the reasons we went there, that Cerner is going to have the appropriate information that's gathered at the front. Once again, the front door, the data and information, that's the information necessary. And the way that Cerner attaches certain coding to certain events in the course of a patient's experience should smooth our process, plus the electronic submission. Man, I really, it should be a cleaner claim. I think Steve, at this point in the testing, is probably rolling his eyes right now, because claims testing is always something that they've got to do. Steve, do you have any comment on that as it relates to our bill at this point?
Yeah, it really is. It's all in the build that we set things up. You know, whether it's the health plan information, whether it's our charge description master, which lists the code, the services we charge for, and then the codes, whether it's a procedure code or a HCPCS code that the third-party payers use to pay off of, those types of things. What we did find when as we've been going through this process with Cerner, we found that there was an immense amount of editing being done by our clearinghouse, or what we call the scrubber. It's where we send a claim to this clearinghouse that then will submit the claim onto the payer. But the clearinghouse actually scrubs the claim for compliant codes and other things that would cause a claim to reject. And what we're seeing is that there was just a huge amount of edits going on at that level to then get the claim to be clean. And so we don't know how much that delayed it, and if there were rejections and they took it back and then had to refix it. Whereas if the setup can be done in Cerner and avoid this, then it'll go out with a first time clean claims rate. Because when you look at this HRG report, you see that our clean claims rate, or that we report, is over 90%, which is fabulous. It's, you know, best practices, but it's been achieved by doing edits to the claim, not just having a claim that flies out on its own in that 90% compliant manner. So yeah, we'll just go ahead.
We'll be using a clearinghouse anymore?
SSI. Yeah, that's our clearinghouse for Cerner.
Okay, so we will still have a
Yeah,
clearinghouse.
the scrubber is still in place. Well, what we want to do is we want to build Cerner, trying to build Cerner in a way that when it hits the scrubber, there's no edits necessary. It's few, so that it's just a single clean claim goes across.
Steve, Sean, can you just put this in a little more layman's terms of it? What's being edited and what's being scrubbed, so I understand that a little better?
It could be the clinical indicators for a specific procedure. It can be HCPCS codes attached to certain types of examinations.
I mean, they've been submitted in error, the code, or what is
Not supported.
in terms
That
of
could be a
documentation?
clinical documentation. So there's a lot of things that can get it caught in the rubber, if you will. Steve, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, it really is. It's the codes. They're just saying, they're looking at it and they're saying, hey, you're billing us for this, and per your diagnosis and per these other codes, you're saying this is what you did, and they have an ability to do, whether it's medical necessity or whatever the rule they use. And in some cases, to a lesser extent, that there's revenue or procedure codes or something that are not correct that we've set up in our CDM. That's one of the things that we're addressing, but it just could be a multitude of things like that.
There needs to be some learning on this end also.
Well, so yes, definitely clinical documentation, you know. ClinDoc is really, really important in physicians. The thing is that Cerner provides them a little bit of cheat sheet, right? So if you did X, Y, and Z, it says it right there. You did this EIM code, and you click it, and then in the back end of that, it has all the appropriate codes for that. So it's more of a create some shortcuts for our physicians. So that it's not just trying to scrub a verbal free text for the appropriate indications, the appropriate documentation that either was spoken by the doctor or not. It's more of a click, yes, that's the one that I did. And then it flows through. So there should be some changes, but it's all about the build and then the training.
Is the challenge, the training challenge
It's
exacerbated by local tenants coming through?
By what locums?
Yeah,
Actually, our locums have been exposed to so many more electronic health records that you can find them to be familiar with Epic or Cerner. They come in.
that's interesting, yeah.
They're pretty sharp, a lot of them.
So they've gained experiences in
Yeah, they
numerous
get multiple
systems.
different places, so they. You know, even with CPSI and a couple more locals went, yeah, this is a horrible system, but I can find my way through it.
Yeah.
Cerner is gonna be, since it's one of the top two, I think it's gonna be something that they go, oh, I've seen this before. Yeah, I can work with this. So a lot to it. I know Steve and his team has been just working countless hours trying to get these things clean. Making sure they're coming across, so.
Thank you.
Anything else to add, Steve?
Nope, that should do it. Thanks.
Any questions from other board members? Rich, Ryan?
No,
All right, thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move along. We are on our critical access hospital report. Donna.
Yes. All righty. First off, thank you for the kind words earlier, both Sean and Jerry. Appreciate that. Moving into the update. Starting with, I've reorganized this a little bit to be more accurate as to the swim lanes and the subcategories. So you'll see that the swim lane for the first item is CEQA, and then I've got the subcategories of the different approvals, first being the Seneca Board, followed by the General Plan Amendment Rezone, followed by LAFCO. So for the general Seneca Board approval, just want to, so the ISMND, the initial study mitigated negative deck, went out on March 7th with a deadline for comments on April 6th. To date, we have not received comments, so we're just waiting until that April 6th date for anything that might come in. Project is anticipated to be presented to the Airport Land Use Commission on April 19th, requesting recommendation for support of the project. And then, as we discussed previously, presenting the updated document incorporating any responses to comments to the Seneca Board on Thursday, May 4th. From there, it will go to Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors. Supplemental letters went to the tribes at the request of the county to comply with Senate Bill 18. Ultimately, any feedback on that will be incorporated into the reviews by both Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors. Planning Commission hearing and recommendation to the Board of Supervisors is anticipated to be May 18th, followed by Board of Supervisor meetings on June 6th and June 13th in order to get aim at getting approval for the General Plan Amendment rezone at those meetings. Following that, we also have, since the last Board of Directors meeting, submitted the LAFCO application that is inclusive of the CEQA document, as well as us providing the CEQA document to them directly, both to LAFCO and CPUD. And we are anticipating that meeting to be in July for the LAFCO annexation, for the approval for that. Moving on to NEPA, we are updating from what's currently written here. I have gotten the draft CAT-X document from Sequoia and am reviewing that, and ultimately will have be able to send that to USDA for their review. We also will have tribal letters that need to go out for the NEPA component of the environmental review to comply with the USDA requirements. And so that, along with getting them this CAT-X document, will then lead to their feedback on the NEPA side of the environmental review.
Donna, what is the CAT-X?
It, it stands for categorical exclusion. And so what they're saying is that there's not, my interpretation of it is that it's being excluded from the requirements, but we have to provide the documentation for that to be accepted. And so we have that document to be able to provide to USDA for their review and acceptance of that categorical exclusion.
Okay, will we be reviewing that at our special board meeting as well?
It is separate. I don't believe that we need, it's akin to, that's a very good question. It's got the ISMND as a attachment to it. So the one that went out on March 7th would be attached to this CAT-X report to NEPA or to USDA. I don't, and there's nothing different in it from what's in the document that's made public. Let me talk with legal, and I'll get back to you on whether there needs to be a board of directors review of the CAT-X document.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up. Alrighty. Moving on. The heliport. We, as I had previously reported, we met virtually with Collins Pine. We were anticipating having a walk of the site on March 21st, but we ended up having to reschedule that to May 2nd due to the snow. Collins Pine asked that be rescheduled. And I'm still waiting for legal input on the MOU, so I don't have any update on that. But we did meet with legal today, additional to what's in this report, and we will be sending out a brief request for interest in the design and regulatory approvals for this heliport. So in parallel to the work with Collins Pine that's referenced in the report, we're also going to be pulling on these a heliport consultant based on a response to an email asking for interest in the project, and trying to make sure that we're staying on the same path, no pun intended, as what we have moved forward with the one flight path, and just moving that design forward to the regulatory agencies. Any questions on that?
Sounds good.
Okay. Harvest plan has been submitted to CAL FIRE, and we did get confirmation of acceptance of the application. This is a bit of a hot button. It's something that we're going to be keeping a close eye on, because CAL FIRE has since indicated that they will need to do a walk of the site in order to complete their review of the application. So again, given the snow situation, I'm working with Sierra Timber Services and CAL FIRE to see how we can best streamline this. But likely we are looking at doing a similar walk with CAL FIRE on that same May 2nd date that we're doing with Collins Pine, so that they want to be able to see the soils. I again am still working to see if I can provide any information to them that will be able to expedite this, but under current circumstances, it's not, it's something we have to keep a close eye on, but it's not pushing our schedule at this date. They need about 45 days from that walk to be able to complete their process. And so that puts us at the middle of June with no wiggle room, which is where we want to be to start the timber removal. So again, it's something that we'll keep a close eye on and see if there's any streamlining that can be done. But right now, that's what we're looking at is completing that approval of the harvest plan at the exact same time as what we're trying to have as our start for the timber removal.
So Donna, CAL FIRE's the one that wants a soil sample?
Yes.
For what purpose?
I'm still trying to work that out. They, I've offered through conversations with Sierra Timber Services, who have been amazing to work with. They're really trying to advocate for us. I've indicated, we have a geotechnical report, we have a stormwater report, we have the topo. We have all this documentation that hopefully would meet the need of what CAL FIRE is looking for. Initially, they've come back saying, no, we need to walk the site. So still working through really what they're looking for in doing that.
It sounds like they'll need snowshoes and a long shovel
One of those core.
or flamethrowers.
Flamethrower.
It's a month, so.
Yeah, but
No, we can get a month, or snow.
Was the 45-day period put out there as the maximum or the average, or is what?
It's essentially an estimate, so that's why I need to make sure that we're keeping on it. Sierra Timber Services has indicated that there's there's a 20-day period in there that they feel like that could go either way. And so they will be pushing to make sure that 20 days stays to a 20-day maximum time frame. Yeah, the 45 days is mapping it all out with the expected timelines.
And Donna is, we're looking at our schedule, worst case scenario, a lot of times very conservatively. And fortunately, we've been doing that because we've eaten away at some of that time. So we're going to continue to take a conservative stance on all of these requirements.
Right.
so Donna, is there any chance that CAL FIRE would be, and Sierra Timber Service would be willing to, have them collect the sample and deliver it to CAL FIRE? I mean, they do anything like that? Do a drone?
Well, I don't think so, because I don't think it's a matter of getting someone else to get them a soil sample. It's more that they want to get their boots on the ground, and it all has to do with snow. So it has to do with them being able to get access to the soil adequately.
We'll find a tree well.
There you go.
Yeah.
We'll get them out with a blowtorch.
I'll continue to push. I've got, we're doing, I have some email communications back with both Sierra Timber Services and CAL FIRE, and last communication was yesterday saying that from Sierra Timber Services saying that CAL FIRE may reach out to me directly to try and get some more clarification. So if they don't do that, I will reach out to them.
Sounds good, thank you.
Shouldn't our geotech and soils report that we had not previously satisfied it?
No,
No.
we've submitted, we told them we've got all that, so they boots on the ground.
Yeah, we've offered all that, and they're still saying that they need to get their boots on the ground.
Maybe we just need to take a loader out there and cut it out.
I don't know, we'll dig a hole.
Get that dirt, we'll-
I have a
we'll do
feeling
what
that will happen.
Get them dirt, so we'll do what we have.
Be one of those midnight path makers.
Thanks.
I think so, it's our property, we can make all the past few months.
Sorry, Donna, you can't maybe hear Linda McSturdy. She says she's gonna go dig a hole for us.
Okay.
Yeah, we heard.
Big lots of places.
I'll let you know if that could be helpful. Alrighty, the next item is actually cut off on the document. I apologize for that. So I'm referring to my base document and have that the easement that was approved has been recorded. And again, as was reported previously, we may have an alternate, more cost-effective solution to this. So we're just kind of keeping this on the radar in case we need to later record a retraction to the easement. Similarly, the secondary access, the design build entity may have a more cost-effective alternate behind the clinic building. And so we're just kind of holding tight as the CEQA document is approved or is reviewed on that front, and whether we do or don't need the secondary access to go through Wildwood. However, it has been determined that it's not an easement that we'd need through Wildwood. It's because it's a county maintained road. So if that is the way that we end up needing to do the secondary access, we wouldn't need to do an easement with Wildwood to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to financing. We Fieldman Roll-Up worked on a underwriter RFP that was distributed. Awaiting final recommendation from Fieldman Roll-Up, and Fieldman Roll-Up is working on doing a presentation for this board planned for the April meeting to talk about where we are with all the updates to the schedule, which have remained pretty constant, but still just making sure that we're taking into consideration the USDA funding and the when we would be drawing from the bond, and just putting that all together for an updated financial report planned for the board in April. And then subsequent to that, just kind of a heads up that in the regular May board meeting, I anticipate giving an update on dollars based on that report from Fieldman Roll-Up, which dollars we'll need to be expending for the Bolt contract, for the design build entity contract moving forward, so that we can be set to be able to have them move forward with their grading that's currently scheduled for middle of July. So just trying to keep the board updated as to where the money's coming from and what money's needed when is kind of what we're trying to make sure that we're keeping you abreast of.
Perfect.
USDA financing. So last meeting, I believe we reported that there was a potential delay in the site work, but what I had written down was that we were waiting this decision. I think I had it verbally, so I just wanted to update this document to indicate that we do not need full loan approval in order to break ground. We only need the NEPA approval, and so as reported previously in this portion of the meeting, we are anticipating having that NEPA document go to them to make sure that it's not holding up, aiming to make sure it's not holding up anything to get started in June for that tree removal.
It's great.
And then in parallel, so as part of the USDA application, examine forecast PAR, and as stated, NEPA are proceeding as well as working on those required forms for USDA. Other funding, philanthropy is ongoing. Additionally, an application for the federal community project funding is, I believe it's complete, and Chelsea was doing that, and it is, again, as stated in the report, for medical equipment, a medical equipment package. And so we'll wait to hear back on that. And the Senate Bill 395 funding, no update that we've received from HCI on that. Schedule and budget, there's no update from the 2/23 Board of Directors meeting. We're tracking for both of those items. For design, we had our second round of schematic design user group meetings on March 20th and 21st. Great input from everyone involved. We have our next design meeting scheduled for May 1st and May 2nd. We are anticipating having the site package submitted to the county in mid-May. And then the building design based on all these subsequent design meetings with the owner, with the end users, and then moving into construction documents. We're looking at the building going to HCI in July. For medical equipment, we have Entroba re-engaged, and they are working to set up vendor review days for various larger architecturally significant items. So working with Judy and Sean to make sure that we have what those items and associated vendors are that we want to review, to make sure that we have that we're getting the correct equipment for the facility.
Thank you, Donna. Yeah, I had the privilege of attending one of the schematic design user meetings, and I was very, very impressed. It was really interesting how it was all put together and very thoughtful. I could tell that there's been a lot of work. Our staff has done a tremendous amount of work getting to where we are now. And I was very impressed. So,
Glad to hear that. Great.
any questions for Donna? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, you're up, Sean, the CEO report.
The updates, I don't really need to go too much about the new hospital build. I think Donna she's very, very detailed in giving the board information about where we are in the process. I can tell you that, I'm going to reiterate. We've been going through our schematic design with our design build entity and HGA, our architects, and I can, when we first had this enormous budget with our previously designed, and we had to shrink a lot of space, I was very concerned about our program, our workflow. But after having now been through two design meetings, two-day design meetings, I can tell you that the smaller building it's shrunk, but we are going to have a very nice hospital, and we were able to accommodate a program that we want to put in there. I think that the staff were surprised by what the new architects had done. So we were able to hit our budget. We're still going to have a great programmatic hospital. It's going to be really well designed. So I'm really pleased with the outcome. Staff jumped in feet first again, along with everything else that they're doing. They took time out of their day to really ask hard questions and consider workflow and patient flow and how it's going to look. So there's a lot going on there.
Is there a square footage number that's attached to?
45.
That's the current.
Is it 42 or 45? Where are we at right now, Donna? 40, 42?
40, almost 44,000 for the square footage.
Previously it was.
For the criteria documents, it was, I believe, 55.
So we've shrunk, 10,000 square feet out of the hospital and still are going to accommodate an excellent flow.
Yeah, they had a virtual reality setup.
Awesome.
Yeah,
about that.
VR,
Yeah,
where you can actually be in the building, walking in the different rooms.
and they projected what the person with was seeing on the screen, so that other people could also go along.
Can we see
So
that at some point?
I was
Yeah.
thinking that might be a nice.
Yeah, it'd be nice around May if
Next-
you want to come
the next-
enjoy it. If they could bring the VR back in May, Donna, that'd be great. So that we could have some board members jump through. But
That would be
Sure.
it was really, really neat. I can tell you what, we are going to be building a beautiful hospital for generations to come. It's going to be very nice.
Yeah.
And it's not oversized. It's what we need for now and in the future. So it's going to be very nice. Legislative updates. We'll give some updates to some legislation that we're following. So Assembly Bill 869, which is the hospital seismic safety compliance, introduced by Assemblyman Wood, Dr. Wood. It did get through committee. There was a lot of interest in this. And I think the interest was developed because Madera's closing, and they're closing because they can't afford a lot of things. So it started getting attention of all the legislature. I can tell you that it's really kicking the can. That's really where this is heading, is kicking the can down the road one more time, which really doesn't help a lot of the critical access hospitals and hospitals that don't need seismic, because it's just going to the cost is just gonna go up exponentially over the years. That's why we're doing this now. It's, you know, even if the seismic requirement gets pushed out,
They're doing it in 1 year, right? Or is it?
no, it's 5. Last time I heard it was 2040 now. But you gotta consider the costs associated with those changes is gonna be because it's gonna be exponential. So I still think that the strategy of us doing this now and meeting the original timeline of 2030 is a very good strategy. So we're still on for it. There is some funding discussion, but not a lot. There, I mean, where are we gonna get it? That's the question. So SB 525 minimum wage for healthcare workers. I have no updates. We continue to monitor these things. This is, believe me, political football in Sacramento right now is the desire for the unions to get to 25 minimum wage. Something that we didn't think about, and I read it at 525 just the other day, was at 525 also has an effect of anybody that is exempt making a salary of 50,000 or more. It put that too. So that's part of the calculus on that, is that now instead of $1 million something, it's going to be a couple of million with compression and the need to adjust up out of the salary range of 50 or more.
And they do have built in there too, increasing that every year
Yes, so
as well.
this is one we really are fighting. It's not that I don't want to, that we don't see the value in healthcare workers, but the market is adjusting accordingly. The market is pushing us into those areas, no matter what, in order to be able to effectively recruit. But with a $25 minimum wage, I can't tell you, across the board, CEOs and CFOs are scratching their head. How do we do this? How do we do this where we have diminished reimbursements, where we have higher expenses? It's just a recipe for disaster. But I got to tell you that I would not be terribly shocked if this just flies right through.
Yeah, well, I will say I did read the letter, and I apologize to
Yes.
the rest of the board because I meant to give it to Deborah so you guys could see it. I'll get it for our next meeting. I did submit a letter opposing this, and I also sent that letter to board presidents from various districts in the area, probably about 8 or 9 of them. So we'll see if anything comes of that. I did get a response from the staff member working on for the committee director, and he acknowledged receipt of it and said he would make sure the committee got it. I looked today and it looks like it's going to be out for in the committee meeting. I can't remember the
Committee.
Yes, on April 12th. So it has gotten signed out.
And this is again, a one size fits all minimum
25
wage.
minimum wage for all healthcare workers, regardless, it could be.
So it doesn't matter if you're in a
Doctor's
little rural clinic somewhere
I-
where they hardly have any money.
It looked like they had made a few modifications before they pushed it out, but I couldn't see what they had changed other than the names of the people.
Everybody's really fighting for exemptions on this, but I think it's gonna
I
apply.
just don't understand how they can say there's a minimum wage requirement for one type of industry but not another. That's what I don't understand.
Well, that's gonna be the argument, you know, it's essential workers is where it all came from in COVID. And people are saying, well, essential workers are stores, gas stations,
Yeah.
you know, there's essential workers everywhere.
We found that out.
It's not just healthcare, hero type stuff. I mean, there are essential workers everywhere. So this is a really big rabbit hole that we're starting to crawl into here. So we'll see. It's political football. I'll continue to monitor and update as we hear if it's out of committee.
And that was a very good letter. It was-
Yeah, 869 did make it out of committee. It's down to appropriations. And that's where you're gonna see the squeezing of the belt. So we'll see what happens there.
So Sean, and just state the obvious or what you already know here, that seismic safety wasn't the only reason we were looking at.
Oh, no.
Hospital.
Well,
Our
even if-
motivation was to instill confidence in the community.
Right, and to provide a better practice environment for physicians and staff and come up to what is considered to be the norm in healthcare.
Well,
Yeah.
look, kind of bordering on functionally obsolete
And that's,
and making those improvements.
it's true, and Darren Beatty was, he testified, he's the COO of PDH, he testified in committee. And basically said, it's irrelevant how long you kick it down the road. It's a funding issue. It's a funding issue. We can keep our hospital rate till 2040. but we don't have all of the things that modern hospitals have. The infrastructure is not there. So pick it all you want, it doesn't matter. What we need is some sort of a funding mechanism, a relief mechanism. But then there's if you want to get into the deep, dark secrets of politics, there's a big push to shut critical access down. Then push everybody that lives in rural America into some sort of system. That's the underpinning that people don't want to talk about, but it sure feels like that, making it harder and harder. So, and
We'll do what we can.
we're gonna fight our way through it. Yep. Clinical centralization project, we heard from our community, yes, there are changes happening. I can tell you that, I'm getting more pushback, because it's change, then this doesn't work. I mean, there's some things we can talk about. This is iterative. I'm very aware of the community. I want to make sure the community has a say and understands, but we have to run. We cannot continue to do things because they're comfortable when they yield a negative financial result or a negative result on our patient. Our obligation to this community is longevity. And if we are doing something that is not where there's a change and it's not spoiled or comfortable anymore, but it has an outcome that is beneficial to the patients and to the organization, we're compelled to at least look at it.
So I wonder, not to add anything else to Chelsea's plate, but I wonder if we might be able to put together kind of a bullet point. Here is the benefit to you as a patient of why we made this change.
It's not palpable, though. That's, I'm happy to do that, but
I would just suggest.
it's,
I think
it's
that's
not
still kind of developing though.
What's
The
that?
benefits to the patient are still
Developing.
in kind of as it goes through adjustments.
Yeah.
It's still kind of developing. But one question I had is, I noticed later on in your report, you talked about upgrading the clinic hallways.
Have you seen it? Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things that Barbara had mentioned was the time that it takes for the nurse to come out and come all the way down the hallway to main reception and escort people, and then their time again to take people back. And I was thinking if we get the hallways fixed up really nice and we have the signage and directional arrows,
Just send them.
arrows. That's my Texas accent coming out.
That's
But is there a point where we would be looking at maybe having a central reception where everything's done, and then maybe a phone call that says, send that person back to the office?
Every
rather
single,
than
one of those are options. Our new signage is going up. Hopefully tomorrow we have it. So I think that the escort right now, as we're getting used to the new flow, is really important.
Oh, I would have gotten lost the other day.
Oh, yeah. There's no
So I was
sign,
like,
no sign back there. I mean, you have breadcrumbs. You have to drop breadcrumbs to get your way back. But I can tell you that I disagree that it's too busy to do that. Because our volumes are just not that high. What we have paid attention to is as we start to gain volume, that we do have relief for the girls up front, that we do have the ability to escort back so right now the MAs don't come out and escort you back. The girls up front will escort you back to them and put you in the waiting room there so that the MA can bring you into a room and work you up. And then, so
well,
we do have
the other
to,
day when I was in here, it was the MA,
sometimes they will come out.
That
Yeah,
came
call
out
them.
and-
If they're not busy, they'll come out.
and also had to escort me back. That's what made me think there's bound to be a lesser qualified person that could be an escort.
We actually are talking to
You know.
human resources about that very thing. Yes, ma'am.
When I went to Kaiser Hospital, I think it was Berlin County. You go in and they had painted lines. They said, well, go to
Yep.
X-ray and follow the red line.
Yep.
Go to the doctor and follow this line.
So for Dr. Ware, follow the purple line. For Dr. Walls, follow the green line.
There. or to-
I don't necessarily want to paint a line on a brand new carpet, but I like the idea.
Yeah, and I thought it was at Kaiser Hospital because I took my daughter-in-law there,
Yeah.
and I think it was Berlin County.
Mhm.
That's been quite a while ago.
Follow
And
the
I
yellow
thought
brick
it was
road.
really neat, because I get lost in too many turns and whatever.
So wayfinding is something we are definitely paying attention to. Wayfinding,
It doesn't have to be a permanent arrow either. Could be something that's, put down for a while to people get used to it.
all these things are
That would
definitely,
probably-
we're open to all these ideas, definitely.
It's a good
Let me
idea.
throw out one
It
more
worked
for you.
Sure.
Maybe in some effort to get health healthcare on the radar of high school students.
Oh, we got it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm wondering if there's some internship opportunities for them.
Just had a conversation today. It's a matter of, if we pay them, there has to be a work permit. Otherwise, it's an internship or a volunteer thing. We talked to our auxiliary as well. And what we do need though is if we have that, it has to be consistent. We have to have it every day that the clinic's open so that we don't have a day that it's not. So we are looking at all kinds of different solutions for how so our patients have ways in and out with comfort, are getting taken care of. The healthcare hasn't changed, just you're entering from a different location. The intimacy of the healthcare stays the same in the office. You know, it's your doctor, your healthcare, you get worked up. It's the mode by which people are getting in and out that we have to consider on a regular basis. So we're open to lots of ideas. The upshot is that it is, in fact, in the back end, things that aren't seen extremely operationally efficient and beneficial to the organization and the patients. Things are getting done. An example was referrals and pre-auths. So time for people are getting their referrals within a day or two, getting scheduled versus 20 days, 30 days, sometimes not at all. You know, I can tell you lots and lots of complaints when I first got here was I was supposed to go see an endocrinologist and no one ever called me. And then we find out that it's been sitting on a desk somewhere and not getting done. And not all the time. I don't want to impugn anybody, but it just didn't have a process. So things would get dropped. And the person struggling with it is the patients. So we're going to take that. We've done all three. Dr. Wall's office is going to be next. They've already been notified that we're changing to the centralization process. We're going to start getting out in front, notifying their patients. I'm sure there's going to be some thrash related to that as well. But that'll be our last clinic that we move over. That's going to be going over during the just prior to the go live of Cerner. So centralization is happening. Cerner all day, every day. I can just tell you the board of directors. I am so happy, so pleased with our staff. This is a hard lift. Everybody is absolutely exhausted. It's a lot of work. And I can tell you that the staff is really leaning into it, really taking ownership of it now that we're in the last final 3-4 weeks. They're taking ownership, and that's starting to show in the way it's being built. And Brian will give you a quick update here in a bit as soon as I'm finished. A lot of things that we're still tracking. This is actually updated. I wrote this last week, so there's a lot of things here on the bullet point that have been resolved this week, which was really good. We made a lot of progress last.
good, because I was going to ask about that.
We've made a lot of progress in the last 2 weeks on a lot of these. We're still monitoring several, but several of them have.
What are
been.
your primary concerns at this point? 'Cause I know next week- next week
My
we're
primary
gonna-
concerns is always the financials, making sure that Steve and his team are happy with things that happen on the clinical side, getting a charge and actually processing through. That's a big one. And the other one is some of our device integration that we've been struggling with. So Cerner has the ability to take actual data from devices like anesthesia machines, where it doesn't have to be put into the system. It just feeds it from the machine into Cerner. So some of that integration, a lot of lab equipment has integration into Cerner.
So they have different like little modules?
Yep, little sort of gateways and boxes and things that take it and feed it directly into certain areas within Cerner. This week, we made a lot of progress in that regard. TK has been just on fire with IT and pushing really hard on our vendors to get things done. So a lot happened this week.
So when we have our go, no go next week, if the financial piece doesn't flow the way we want it to, that's our.
There's a go no go decision that'll happen next week. I anticipated it will be a go. It wasn't a go 2 weeks ago. It was really struggling.
Well, this kind of makes me look, that's why I'm
Yeah.
glad to hear you
We're
say
doing
that.
better. We're doing better. I think the go no go will be fine. Things are starting to drop as far as charges a little bit more. A lot of it was just things were getting built by the Oracle team. You know, they just things were delayed and not getting built, and we've had to replicate those. We've had to duplicate a lot of processes and things like that. But we're in the fight. We're in the fight all the way to the end. We're now our training schedules in place. We've got our physicians that are going to be lined up and trained. So lots happening. It's just constant. So it's every day, all day.
It'd be nice to finally flip this switch and have it up.
Right.
Perfect, right?
So you'll be getting reports about our post-surgery lines per by a month until things become muscle memory. All right. Seneca Health campus updates. As you know, these are starting slow. We've done a lot of things. Security camera, we still don't have them hooked up. The box shipped, can't find the box. We can't find that piece of technology that was shipped to us, so they're shipping again, and then they couldn't come up to configure because the weather's been so bad. It has affected us in a lot of ways. Same thing with the digital radiology transfer technology is being stopped a little bit because of the Cerner bill and the requirements for IT. Clinic hallways, I recommend you go into the clinic hallways. It's beautiful. We put our art up today, so it looks brand new.
I was really impressed.
It looks brand new. So, and that's really important. You know, when you go back there, you don't want it to look ratty. So as we start to open this up, the hallways are looking beautiful and the signage will be going up here this week. Physician mid-level recruitment. We interviewed a very lovely lady by the name of Heather Smith. She's a physician's assistant with a long history of family medicine. I'll be putting an offer out to her. Dr. Walls interviewed her, and she will actually be working with Dr. Walls in his office to start using some of that and start building that practice back up, combining the two of them. They're looking for that. We'll see what she says. I think it's a good offer. I think she's going to fit very, very well. We also have another mid-level, a PA by the name of Robert Plants, that will be interviewing. He's coming up. We've already interviewed him once. He too has a great family medicine background. So we'd like to get him up. As far as physicians, Dr. Russo is taking a little break to attend to some family matters for 3 months. We do have a Dr. Schilling coming in to replace him for 3 months, but Dr. Russo has made today, just at lunch today, he said that he wants to come back. I did put an offer in front of him, and he loves it here. We'll see if he wants to stay permanently. He's a very good doctor and excellent results from our physicians. Really think he's outstanding, fits really well. I would like to make him a permanent fixture at Seneca.
Sounds
So
like it'd be a great fit.
so we're working. So we'll continue our recruitment in that, and then we continue our work on long-term care. Forever. Okay, that's my report. Any questions?
Thank you, Sean. Lot going on. Any questions, comments for Sean?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any?
All right, so moving on. Discussion, LAC tenant improvement infill project Boneyard.
Yes. So
Boneyard is.
yeah, I call it's our kind of endearment here called Boneyard. So for new board members, the Boneyard is an area, it's a very large area that's been on the second floor. It's next to health information management. It was basically a junkyard. It caught everything that we didn't want. It is completely cleaned out. It has a couple things that we're staging for Cerner, but it's completely cleaned out. Part of the strategic planning of this organization is not just the new hospital. It's what do we do with our existing space, long-term. That area up there, I would like to build out ultimately to put the business services upstairs and get them off the bottom clinic floor where we could potentially bring in additional clinic work. This area is usable.
Mammography.
Well, lots and lots of different options. It's a great space. It's next to HIM. So the business units and health information management are very, they do a lot together. This is a quote to completely redesign it, including engineering, because we have airflow issues up there. So this is a quote from Aspen Street. They've been with us for a long time. They know the space upstairs. I would like to have a discussion and get approval to move forward. It is under 25,000, so I can sign, but I want the board to look at me. I want you to know that we're being very conscientious. I know there's a lot of fiscal outlay going on right now, and Steve and I ask permission a lot from Steve, and we look at these things. We're going to have to start, if you will, throttling back and throttling up a little bit, and really timing out some of these improvement options as we start to design and go into our bill with what is going to be a lot of owners output up front. So we have to watch our cash flow and things like that. But I would like to get approval to at least get this thing designed and have plans so that when it's timing, we can go to bid and build out and then move the business services upstairs.
You know, any timeline targets?
They would start this, that we would have probably the entire design and if you will, build design. Or to be able to go to bid and get thing right away, they can go at it right away. As far as the actual build out. You know, if everything worked out really great and our financials look good, and our bids came in, they weren't ridiculous. I would really, really like to have this done by the time the snow falls next year. Or this in 2023.
And square footage cost for this wouldn't be like building a hospital.
No, it's not HCI. This is a county, this is a non-HCI. So it's just, you know, it would be prevailing wage because we are a district facility, but we would bid it probably, I would like to bid it as local as possible. Yeah,
And most of the costs would be related to the electrical systems, lighting fixtures, that type of thing.
air delivery systems, heating, things like that. Yeah, because it's shell space.
We already have.
It's just shell space up there. In fact, I recommend that you go up there and take a look if you haven't been up there. It's quite astonishing how big it is, other than that, when you remove everything.
So how many cubicles would be in this cubicle space? Like how many people are we talking about?
Oh, I think that we could easily have probably 3, 4, maybe 5 offices. And then what we call a generalized or hoteling space, we could probably put there, no problem. 15 maybe,
Oh, 15.
and we don't have 15 that are going up there. So it's a beautiful space.
Yeah, any objections to Sean moving forward with this idea of getting this design done at this point?
No, as a matter of fact, I think from the time it was built, it was always the plan to
It was.
utilize that space
Yeah.
for that type of purpose.
I think it's time to act on it.
Rich or Ryan, any comment?
No,
All right.
No comment here. I think it's a great idea.
We'll
Thank
press
you.
forward with Aspen. Okay.
Yeah,
Next
where's the
up-
elevator? Where's it?
Oh, that's where the elevator is.
Oh, it's right here.
Start over there.
So next up, we have board member position opening. Sorry to say that Ryan has submitted his letter of resignation since he's purchased a house outside of our community and has been moving there full time. We really appreciate having you on our board, Ryan, and all of your contributions. If you have anything you wanna add?
Really appreciate the opportunity to support the community, and I wasn't expecting to make a permanent move away from the community, but just the way things are shaping up here in the tech world, maybe work from home isn't as possible as it was, you know, a couple of years ago when it all started. So I think it's in the best interest that I step down, as I probably won't be able to attend many board meetings in person, and I think having a community member represented would be more adequate. So happy to stay on until a suitable replacement has been selected, but I do think it is time.
Thank you, Ryan. Really appreciate all of your time and your input on the board. You've been really helpful, and sorry to see you go, but congratulations on your new home.
Thank you.
And I was also wanting to let the board know, I did speak with Shelley, who had inquired previously about being on our board. And she did express that she is interested still. She was not able to come today because she had a prior obligation. But she is intending to attend our next board meeting. So we will agendize a board member selection for our next meeting, and we will make sure it gets published out to the public, see if there's anyone else who's interested. Unless anyone objects, I told her that we wouldn't subject her to the interview process again since we just did it. Just if anyone else expresses interest, then we would interview them, of course.
And you still have the same questions.
And I have the same questions, exactly.
Good.
So any questions or comments around this?
I think it's a great idea. I thought she sounded like a really good potential board member.
Jerry,
Yes, ma'am.
so I will be posting the vacancy notice, and so, is it 30 days? Is it, I can't remember. 60 days.
Yeah, we have 60 days to go.
Okay.
So I think maybe,
Yeah, that gives Ryan some guidance.
yeah, I was gonna say, I wonder if we should have, if Ryan, maybe could your last day be our next board meeting? And then if we choose someone at that point, we have someone going forward. If we don't, still have 30 more days to select. Does that sound reasonable?
Yes, that sounds reasonable.
I think let's put that date on notice, right?
Okay.
Yes, yes, go ahead and use the date for our next one. So thank you, Ryan.
And we just, because we just went out with a recruit. You know, I think that we're well within being able to make an appointment at the next board meeting.
Yeah, we
It's not like
we don't always wait the 60 days. We
Right.
usually try to fill as soon as we can. Okay, great, thank you. Okay, let's see. Next up is our updated organizational chart. And this, I just asked if we could have a copy of this because at the last conference that I went to, it was suggested that the board of directors review their work chart annually, just so we know with the organization how it's set up in case things have been changed or whatnot. Well, it was actually suggested that board has the ultimate responsibility for the org chart. Leaving that right there, I just wanted to share this with everyone. I personally am perfectly comfortable with how this is set up. If anyone wants to review it and potentially make changes to it, we can. Otherwise, we can table it again until next year.
Do you I have a question? Do we have any official relationship with the auxiliary?
An official relationship, that's an interesting question.
There are 501c3, independent 501c3. You know what, we should probably,
Dotted line on
and
here.
we should dotted line this, right, Rich, that's a great catch.
Thank you, Rich.
To their board president. So I will ask that we add
Dotted line there.
dotted line to the auxiliary board president. Because we do have a very tight relationship with them. It's been it's gone away a little bit because of COVID, but it started to come back as they're having the meetings again. So we'll dotted line that. Please note that, Deborah.
Okay.
Thank you. It's a good catch.
Anything else? Thank you, and thanks for making sure we got this. Okay, next up, our CNO report. I think it's Judy's at a conference, right?
Judy is not available.
Actually,
Okay, Judy, thanks, Judy.
I'm reporting from Durham, California, where it's 63 degrees and there's no snow on the ground. So
We are so jealous right now.
Yeah.
I appreciate that comment.
I don't think I do.
That workshop again.
Yeah.
it's very refreshing, looking out on the vineyard right now. So I've got the usual COVID report, and we have Katie Neely, our infection prevention nurse, on the line too, I believe. And so there are some significant changes coming beginning next Monday, April 3rd, especially as it relates to masking. I know you've had an opportunity to read through this, but if you have any questions, Katie would be happy to answer anything on the new changes coming next week.
So after hearing Barbara's concerns, we're still gonna say what the state guidelines are.
We're constantly monitoring, and I think we have Katie speak to, we're constantly monitoring the level in the county. We really are low. You know, this does not stop anyone from wearing a mask. This is just guidelines for healthcare.
Still make them available for patients.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, it's really important to understand that there's nothing to stop the general public from continuing whatever isolation precautions they wish to take. But we will be following the CDC's recommendations, and it will be based on the community level. And so we've remained very, very low in Plumas County for the last few months, which is very encouraging for us.
Thank you, Katie. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that even though we're not requiring them, we'll still make them available just for comfort.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
So next, our CNA program is still scheduled. We did push it out. We were going to start in March, but with all of the competing interests, and we're waiting for a final approval because we kind of modified our schedule a little bit. We're waiting for final approval by CDPH on that. And there were a few changes in the grant funding. And so we want to make sure we've got all of our ducks in a row before we progress on that. But people are still allowed to submit their application online if they would like to be considered for an interview to be part of our CNA program. And we're extremely encouraged by the number of applicants that we currently have. So more to come on that. Go ahead.
Remind me what our cohort will be for this course. How many?
We would like to take up to 6 students.
Okay, and we've had quite a few applications?
Yeah, we have had several applications, but some of the applicants aren't necessarily sure that they have interest in working other areas. And as much as we would like to be an educational program for our community, we really want to entice applicants that want to be, permanent Seneca employees. So while we may accept some applicants that may move on, we really want to reach out to those that really want to stay right here in the Chester Lake Almanor area. And so by pushing it out to June, we were hoping that we could capture some graduating high school students that may be able to join the program once school is over.
That's kind of what I was wondering, if that's partly why we're going that way, Judy. Thank you.
What's the duration of the program?
It's basically a 12-week program. So by September, they should graduate from the program, be eligible to sit for the state exam. And once they have passed the exam, then, they would be eligible to apply for a permanent position. Currently, we have 4 positions available on our long-term care unit.
And so how many can be in a cohort?
Well, we actually could take several based on the fact that we have 2 instructors and the instructor to student ratio is pretty high. So we could take quite a few, but again, we really want to focus on those who are most likely to stay with us permanently at Seneca.
Okay, and I just was wondering in rough terms what the cohort size looks like. I mean, ideally 5, 10.
Oh,
I don't have any idea.
She
What?
said 6.
Or you say 6?
Yes, 6. Accommodate them to clinical underneath for 6.
Gotcha.
Yeah, just to be able to give them enough time that we can support them in our education center with our new computer lab that we have. We do provide the scrubs for them and other basic equipment. And so it does get to be a little bit expensive if we make the cohort too big, and then they don't get as keen an experience one-to-one with our instructors and with our residents. So taking all of that into account.
Okay.
We did have our final 2 Hill-Rom beds arrived. That completes our fleet of brand new beds on our acute care floor. We're just waiting to, evacuate again so Sean can check them out for us and make sure that we got the right one.
Don't say that.
It all started.
What a horrible
I
thought.
had to sleep.
Guys,
Oh, I had to sleep in one of the beds and they were terrible. We have all new beds now.
all new beds, all new linens, brand new televisions. Yeah, we got it all. So we're all set there. A couple weeks ago, we had a surveyor from CDPH show up unannounced, as they always do. And it was related to 3 complaints. One was for a self-reported fall on long-term care. And then the other 2 were for some allegations that I would say, for lack of better term, I would say they were shocking. Shocking against Seneca in general. And so many of us got to spend 2 full days with this surveyor. And I'm very happy to report that Sean and I received the final report and there were 0 deficiencies. In fact, she actually was saying, I would be happy to be a patient here at Seneca. It's clear that your staff are very, very compassionate. These were extremely difficult cases with families that had limited coping skills, and it really made us very, very proud once again of what we're doing here at Seneca. And I just want to say to the board, you should be really proud of what's happening, because if you have a CDPH surveyor saying, I would be one of your patients, that's a pretty big, star. So anyway, so, and then the last thing is we had several departments submit their wish list items for Seneca Auxiliary, and they will be meeting their next board meeting to determine what will fit into their budget. And we did exceed what we believe they have available. And so hopefully next month we'll be able to report on what has been accepted as the equipment on the list submitted. And unless you have any questions, that's it for my report.
Well, I'm just very curious about the humans simulator.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Can you just elaborate on that a little bit, what it does?
So it's basically a mannequin that looks like a human, and it's very it's a wireless simulator, and it's basically made for us to run simulations for ACLS and that sort of thing. So it's, let's say if we called a code blue, where someone has stopped breathing, their heart has stopped, we can run codes, and basically they're already pre-programmed with a lot of different scenarios. So the staff would come upon this person, whether they're laying on the floor or sitting on a toilet or what have you, and based on their decision making, the mannequin is going to respond appropriately, just like a human would. And we're hoping to do more and more of those types of code simulations in the next year, to make sure that we really are good in these very, very extreme conditions that we may find. And we may have these happen anywhere on campus. It could be in the clinic, it could be on the floor, it could be out in the waiting room, but we need to make sure that everyone knows what their roles are if someone were to experience a life-threatening condition.
Really glad I asked the question.
Wow.
Really
It's a
interesting.
pretty amazing.
They're actually pretty scary.
I bet they are.
That's amazing, Judy.
Yeah, in my experience, as a flight nurse, we used to do this. We would even, put a human simulator in the helicopter and practice even in the air. We would put them in the back of a car, and staff would stumble. Someone would call from a parking lot and someone was having a baby out there. It's really, for me, it's fun. But really, it's just to make sure that our staff really know how to alert the appropriate systems, especially with, we will be testing even our new phone system. Do you know how to alert on our new phone system, how to get help, say if someone collapses in the Lake Almanor clinic, et cetera. So we'll be looking forward to reporting back to you on how those go.
Great.
That's
That is
amazing.
really-
Thanks.
Building muscle.
Yes.
Yep.
Any other questions for Judy? Thanks for joining us from down south, Judy.
And making us tell us.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next up, we have a project manager report. Do we have Brian on?
Brian.
I'm here.
We've already kind of talked about Cerner a bit, but go ahead and launch into the report too, please.
But we did, yes. So the no-go, we talked about the go, no-go being pushed till next week. They wanted to make sure we're fully vetted in our information. IT2 clinical went really well. The build was still, there was still a couple charges not there. And like Sean said, a lot has happened since that IT2 clinical testing week. The charges are dropping across for the big thing was that I saw. I was playing the physician role in the documentation with the professional fees and consult fees, and those are all dropping now. And just kind of what, I just want to kind of recap what Steve and Sean were talking about before. Just really briefly, the difference between Cerner's billing tied to the documentation is, there are doctors at my old site that used to have a really extensive problem list. And when you would print out the documentation, all those would look active. Cerner has a differentiator that shows what's for this visit as opposed to what's active. And then when you're documenting or ordering, those active diagnoses for that visit are tied to that order and your assessment and plan. So it makes it really clear when you're going through the billing process for the coders. And then if there's an auditor or a review of the claim, where that documentation is for that specific problem. So that's a 10,000-foot view, but that's one of the big differentiators from the legacy EHRs to what Cerner and the new EHRs do.
Thank you for that.
Like we talked about before, interfaces are going through. And now that the build is in a place where we can be testing ADT feeds, sending the registrations over to make sure that the Mindray vital monitors are getting the patient information, that we're going to be getting results back in automatically. Again, we were up against the wall with some supply chain issues with the anesthesia machine, but being the squeaky wheel that Sean is and Seneca is, we got that device on the way, and that will be installed on the 10th and tested and completely ready for go live. I had just received the cutover plan and for the week of the 24th. I'm reviewing that right now. I'm going to be handing it out to the rest of the team so they can be prepared what the 6 p.m. to midnight looks like, what midnight looks like, and what the first day looks like. We've got a good group of team that's going to be on site. A lot of them actually are at Eastern Plumas, I've discovered, for their go live. So we can kind of find out how things really went over there compared to us. But Cerner's build is really back end heavy, and it was tough for the team to want to be in there and it not to be ready to be in there. And since, like Sean said, since IT2 has been, we've gone through IT2, the build is really there. The team has really dug in and really started really accepting and getting used to the change. The leads will really get their hands full through the training that started on the 20th. So those are going to be the super users. So they will have a really good handle on what to do and who's going to struggle with what, as they are the educators for the staff. Day one, everybody will be nervous. It is our role as leaders to be calm and to help them through. We know the system will document properly. We know we have checks and balances. Seneca is, like Judy said, a fantastic hospital with people that care, and people that care will be nervous, but we will we'll guide them through. We have arranged for the physician education and concierge to happen. It's happening right before go live, and we've kind of slid it towards the end of the week. So the educator will come out. He will be here Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, so we can catch some of the ER docs that are working the weekends, and then stay on through the week of go live to be the at the elbow support for the docs. So I think we're in a really good place. We had discussions about what we're going to preload to make life easier for the physicians and the staff earlier today. It's a plan I've been working on for quite a while now. So I think we're in a really fantastic place. We'll really see the meat and potatoes as those claims start flowing through, the scrubbers and everything else. But I'm not really anticipating on the clinical side anything really going bad. And we will have John O'Connor, the whiz for our rev cycle and patient accounting on site for our go live. So I'm not really anticipating much issue there as well.
Great, thank you.
Good.
Any other questions? Any questions?
Exciting.
Yeah.
No, this was probably the last time. Well, I'll probably talk to you one more time before I go away after go live.
Now.
But the last 4.5 weeks or so, I will be on site to help leadership out, run around and keep everybody as calm as possible.
Our April board meeting the week of July, so.
Oh,
I mean,
boy.
get our hairs like this.
Well, no.
Don't know how we did.
Or nobody shows up.
We're gonna show us up.
And thank you, Brian. Any questions for Brian? Appreciate it. Thanks for all of your hard work on this.
No problem. It's been a pleasure working with all of you. It's a fantastic environment up there.
All right, next up, we have our departmental reports. We have our compliance report, our IT report, HR and marketing. I went through and I really appreciate how comprehensive you all were with the reports. It really helps me understand a lot about what's going on behind the scenes. And so I personally am very thankful for the way you guys have put this together. I don't think that I have any specific questions. I don't know if any of the other board members do. I did note that Linda McCurdy is having her anniversary this month. 36 years today.
Wow.
Wow.
Congratulations to both of you. And I really loved, I know Judy's dropped, but I really loved her, her shout out to try and get everybody through all the snow. It made me feel happier reading it, so.
Have you ever seen a Woods year? Just asking Linda.
I haven't seen a year like this in all years I've been. I think we had more stress in the winter of 92, 93, just because it was so overwhelming in such a short time. But by March, it was 80 degrees.
Right, yeah.
We had a miracle March after we had, you know, that month with 24 feet of snow and 10 inches of rain. So it was short lived and we were out of it. This was,
Yeah.
I think just with moving this alone, would not do the entire population on its head. And I think we all need a dose of sunshine and some warm weather and we'll not be different.
Right.
I think you're right. I think I was happier today because it was sunny.
You know, the minute you
For
see
sure.
the sun, I think it gives you, literally, I think we all have to get steel. Now, we're looking for some hope,
Yes.
a little bit of hope out there somewhere.
Yeah, I was smiling so much and then somebody felt it, they needed to inform me that next week it's gonna storm again.
Yeah.
I was like,
Was that me? That was.
what a
it, wasn't it?
buzzkill.
I think Sean feels that way about me because he looked better. So Lynn's doing it again.
Oh, man.
And then I just wanted to make a call out too about our wellness screenings. It looks like we have them scheduled for June. June 6th, 7th, 10th, 13th, and 14th from 7 AM to 9:30 AM. So just want to make sure the community is aware of that and knows that they can show up. I know there's certain requirements around vaccine and the like, but I know that's all on the website. So for people without the website, call us and we can tell.
Okay, the next meeting is going to be April 27th,
Yes.
Yes,
because this is March 30th.
it does. I missed that when I read.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, that's okay. Wasn't sure if you might have changed it.
No, we didn't. We didn't. You're correct. Thank
That
you.
was me.
Okay.
You're entitled to 10 mistakes the rest of this year.
Any other board questions or comments on our departmental reports? No? Okay, well, thank you all. With that, we will adjourn to closed session.
Now.
All right, closed meeting is closed and we are in open session. And there are no reportable actions taken during closed session. Our next regular board meeting will be on April 27th at 3 PM here in the conference room. And meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Well, thanks all.
Good meeting.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Rich.
Rick.